A project engineer's role can vary from company to company and from project to project. For this reason, I will keep the topics general, but provide relevant examples from my experience on our heavy civil project on I-26 Asheville. My goal is to create an expectation with some guidance, so you can better understand the role of a project engineer and the impact they have on construction operations and job site management. As a construction manager, you may find yourself in residential, industrial, commercial, or heavy civil construction, all of which have unique owners, processes, standards, and relationships. However, there are a few things which are standard across the industry. So let's dive into 3 categories, which I will reference in terms of bridge construction. You have the foundation, the cap, and the beams of a project engineer. Just like a sturdy bridge, a good project engineer is based on a solid foundation. This foundation comes from the contract documents. As we say around here, RTFC. Read the fun contract. This covers the primary contract with the owner and all related documents, which typically includes plans, specifications, standards, and other explicitly mentioned material. This reading also involves secondary contracts, subcontracts, and all related materials. These could be agreements with subcontractors, vendors, suppliers, and other entities. Overall, these contracts become a looking glass telling you what you are doing, how you are required to do it, what constraints are in place, and typically, being in the for-profit industry we're in, how you will be compensated. All very important, especially for a newcomer to the job site. The contract will determine how you build the job, aka construction operations, and how you will manage the job site management. On my project, we are dealing with a cinder block size contract and about 2,000 pages worth of plans. So sometimes you have to focus on the relevant chunks and get into the rest later. After a firm understanding of the contract is established, a project engineer's role is to elevate this information so that action can take place. Overall, the plans included in the contract become an overwhelming amount of information, and the reading portion can become boring and even confusing. As the project engineer, you become responsible for digesting, compartmentalizing, controlling, and communicating the data, elevating it for others to access. As a project engineer, you get to feed off of the experience of other project engineers, assistant project managers, superintendents, foremen, subcontractors, and any other relevant contacts. Ask questions, get involved in the field, and observe the decisions of others. Learn from both the successes and failures of the job. Running parallel with collaboration is clear communication. As a project engineer, you will be involved with submittals, requests for information, RFIs, owner meetings, subcontractor meetings, and multiple crews and/or subcontractors. It is imperative that you communicate effectively, clearly, and frequently. The final way to elevate your information is through document control. Being organized becomes of utmost importance for tracking quantities, cost, schedule changes, communication records, and much, much more. Becoming proficient in Excel or other useful software such as Microsoft systems, Google systems, or project management systems such as Procore will become a primary tool for effective document control. Document control will allow you to use your time more effectively, leading to better time management and a greater impact in the field. Now that we have the vertical portion of our metaphorical bridge complete, it's time to set some beams. These next three topics make up the majority of deliverables for a project engineer. These are also the topics that are typically stressed in the world of construction management: quantities, cost, and schedule. Understanding and tracking quantities becomes the primary focus in a project engineering role. You have read and absorbed the contracts, you have developed a way to control and organize the data, and now you must break down and track the numbers. Takeoffs are a basic component of quantities. In layman terms, this is simply looking at the plans or the site to estimate quantitative needs. Think of your estimating classes. For example, a structures project engineer on my project will delve into the rebar needs for bridge columns using the plans, and they will determine the size, length, and type of rebar needed. They may also determine manpower necessary, equipment needed, and any additional material that would accompany the operation. That can include items like rebar ties, slings for rigging, forms, bracing for forms, and concrete to actually pour the column. Ultimately, you are constantly creating a takeoff for all operations, some of which will be more formal and detailed, and some of which will be made on the fly. The next step in the world of quantities is the tracking required to ensure control of the operation. On a very basic level, you have to know what was ordered and what was installed. That same structures engineer should be able to tell me how much rebar is on site, where it will be installed, where it was installed, and the quantities of the installation. While determining and understanding your quantities, you also have to develop a tie to cost. Everything has a cost, so it is important to know the monetary implications of your estimate and make cost-conscious decisions. There are costs for labor, burden, temporary materials, permanent materials, equipment, subcontractors, suppliers, and additional overhead. As a project engineer, you will be responsible for knowing these costs and ensuring they are within a budget. This may require you to determine the most productive crew size, or the most cost-effective supplier, or if you should self-perform or sub the work. The list goes on the implications of cost. Take, for example, this dirt hauling operation on our project. A project engineer should know and track the cost of the 2 operators and the 2 haul truck drivers. They also had to determine if it was worthwhile to use a 3rd haul truck or if 2 was substantial to achieve max production. Finally, they would work with the crew to develop a method to quantify the work. Ultimately, the project engineer should end up with an overall quantity and an overall cost, allowing them to determine the cost per cubic yard, the amount of dirt moved per man-hour, or other useful information. This production and cost information becomes a key factor in scheduling. If you know the quantities, you know the production, you know the ties with cost, then you can determine the likely duration. As a project engineer, you will be tasked with ordering materials, coordinating with subcontractors, and directing crews according to the critical path. This critical path is nothing but quantities with assigned durations aligned in a logical manner. As a project engineer, you would likely be involved with a broad schedule. Think major milestones, typically in programs like P6, Microsoft Project, etc. A look-ahead schedule, think 3 weeks or 2 weeks, typically in Excel, Procore, or sometimes in Microsoft programs. Or a daily schedule, which could be hour by hour, which is broken down in Excel or maybe just in your notes. It is likely you will be involved with all 3. Here, you can see an example of our P6 schedule, which is our broad schedule, where it details each activity, the duration, and the tie to subsequent and preceding activities. Here is our 3-week schedule, which is a more narrow view, which shows which crews are going to which locations, who the corresponding project engineer is, who the corresponding superintendent is, and the expected quantity. Finally, we have our deck pour schedule, which is a daily schedule broken down hour by hour to ensure we meet the productions. Every day as a project engineer, I'm involved with all of these basic management practices, from the metaphorical foundation, cap, and beams, to even the literal foundations, caps, and beams. It is fast-paced, exciting, sometimes overwhelming, but a fun and involved job title to carry. I have read and written pages upon pages of contracts, collaborated and communicated with specialty subcontractors, learned from people with 30+ years of experience in the field, and bargained with owners. I've developed best practices for document control, done hours worth of takeoffs, ordered millions of dollars in material, tracked millions of dollars worth in compensation, and tied all things together with a cost and schedule impact. I've led crews, worked with professional engineers, been on nearly every piece of machinery on the project, talked with many different companies' PMs, learned from some of the best, and ultimately enjoyed my time as a project engineer. You become involved in something that will stand for future generations and begin to set yourself up for a successful career. Let's use the remainder of this video to highlight some of the things that I've been involved with on this project and hear from some of my fellow project engineers. My project engineering duties relate most closely with our mobile batch plant and the concrete paving operation. Having no previous experience in either item, I had to follow the process I previously outlined, relying heavily on a willingness to ask questions. I oversaw the creation of our batch plant site from mass excavation, over 100,000 cubic yards, to the design of the foundation, to the erection of the plant. Here are a few clips showing the process. One of the coolest things about this project is the equipment demand. We have loads of brand new yellow iron, from the common dozers, excavators, graders, loaders, rollers, backhoes, and skid steers, to the more specialized RT cranes, crawler cranes, CZMs, drill rigs, and concrete paving equipment. I've had the opportunity to learn about each of these and sometimes even operate the equipment. Let's hear from some of my fellow project engineers.
Hey, my name is Dan. I'd say my favorite part of being a project engineer would be seeing what you're working on come to life, to see the guys in the field build it and to be a part of that.
Hi, my name is Allison, and my favorite part of being a project engineer is working with superintendents and foremen to find solutions to problems.
My name is Jonathan Dean, and my favorite part about being a project engineer is working in a fast-paced environment and the blasting.
Seeing a project progress over the life cycle of the job and being part of it all is rewarding and motivating. And if you are interested in heavy civil, I highly encourage seeking an internship or employment through Walsh and Archer Western.